My name's Steve Twydell, and I'm the CEO of a company called 3T Logistics, or the 3T Logistics Group.
Very good. And how long have you been involved? Well, you founded the company, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yes.
How long ago was it?
I founded the company officially in 2000.
Right. And then, further down the route, you decided you'd involve a coach. When was that?
Well, involved the Sherlock's coach.
Yes.
Yeah, they came in around about 2007.
Right. So what was happening to your business at that time that made you think, well, maybe?
Frustration, stress, wondering why we weren't growing, getting annoyed with the workforce, annoyed with myself, and trying to work out, what's happening. Why have we sort of ground to a stop in terms of how the business was actually not just growing, but actually innovating as well.
Because you say frustration, there was a smile on your face, but so it suggests that you've been doing very nicely, thank you.
Yeah, we'd done well. We'd started it from zero. We got to a stage where we had some very big customers, like the JCBs and Limpacks and SCAs. These are blue chip customers, and we'd achieved some great things with them. But we weren't progressing fast enough. And there was too much thinking in our business. There was too much analysing and not enough decision making, and the energy of driving us forward, of trying to make something happen. We were losing energy.
And how much as a team had you grown during that period?
I think at that stage we had about we were around about the 35 mark. So yeah, it was around about the 35, about 35 employees. Thinking back on it, yeah, it was around about that time.
And what about your team of directors around you? How was that working?
Well, there was a very strong, a bit like a brotherhood, as we called it, of the five, the famous five. And unbeknownst to us, we'd also created a very, very thick glass ceiling, which of course was one of the reasons that was stifling creativity in the group. And the group of individuals were very much, I was quite a knower and coming up with ideas. The other group were more thinking biased. So they would spend most of their time trying to work out why we shouldn't do things, and how it was far too risky to do all this growth stuff. And at least one of them, who's another very dominant person within that board, was spending a lot of time really on trying to highlight the risk and to highlight the fact that, failure is an option that we ought to spend a lot of time analysing and understanding, where I wanted to put my energies into growing and being successful.
Now that analysis, how did that come about? Was that part of Sherlock's approach?
Yeah, I think we start, probably looking back at it, it's we've had Sherlock's now involved in our business, and the frameworks and the structures, which we've used a lot of them. So I sort of analysed the history sometimes with a Sherlock's-esque type of approach, so I can put it into the compartments that I've been taught or we've been coached. I couldn't honestly say we knew what the problem was at that time, except I got to a stage where I've got to do something else. And initially we went into training, so we get people trained. And you get someone, a trainer, and they'd be quite good, and they'll tell us what we've got to do, and then by 3 days' time we've forgotten 90% of it. And so that wasn't working, so I was trying to figure what else can we do. And we were introduced to Sherlock's by someone said, a business colleague of mine said, you ought to try this lot. They're a bit expensive, but they're pretty good. And they have a completely different way of doing things. And running my own business and starting your own business, because when you start a business, you want to prove it yourself. It was like, I hate consultants. I don't want no consultant telling me what to do. That's the last thing I want. And I got a bit fed up with people coming in and telling me how we can change your business and help you and do all these things, and then spout out a lot of theoretical stuff, which I learned years back in my business school. So, I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, yeah, I'll see these guys. Yeah, we might as well do. And they came in, and there was quite an emotional experience because they started really touching the areas that none of the consultants I've spoken to had done before. They'd really got behind the emotion, what it was like to run a small business and grow a small business. And then, you know, I had a session with them, and they had a group session, or like a small conference it was locally in Reading, and I went along to that, and they described my business perfectly, where we were, all the problems we were having, but they weren't describing my business, they were describing everybody's business, because everybody was in the same boat. And you get a bit fed up at that stage because you realise you're not unusual, you know, because 99% of all businesses are generic, as you start to realise. But it also makes you feel a bit better because you think there's not a way out of it. And ever there is a saying, in the brick wall, and we were just hitting this brick wall. You know, we got through the first brick wall. You know, we'd made some money, had some nice holidays, the car was better, you know, all a few things were happening, which... and that was the other thing that Shirley's did. I remember that conference. They mapped out our last 6 or 7 years. And they said, you've probably done this and you've probably done that. And we're just going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I bet the holidays have got a bit better lately, haven't they? Yeah, they have actually, last 2 or 3 years. And you went through a couple of years where it's like, yes, this is quite good, isn't it? So I'm quite enjoying this. They said, why has it all changed? And the reason is when you grow, you go through the fact you go through these stressful times and all your communication processes, and the cultural side of the business has changed. It becomes far more commercial. So all those elements that were hitting us at the time were, you know, how do we get around this, you know? And when you become more commercial, the finance director is starting to really call the tune in the business. And unfortunately, financial directors look at risk, and they look at things that could go wrong, and they highlight that, and that becomes a major element of, you know, in your decision making. So that was, you know, all set up, and at that point we said, okay, right, I'm going to get these guys in properly, and we did. At that stage, we brought them in, and then went through various frameworks.
So give me an example of a framework that actually has now moved you past that brick wall. You talked about capacity, for example.
You know, yeah, we've done the capacity frameworks, functionality frameworks, we've done 6 steps, we've done, you know, the cultural side of it. And to put anyone to say, right, anyone has worked on his own would be wrong. But if you take the 3 core ones there, which was culture, capacity and functionality, what's happened is that we did them with Shirley's, and then we've done them again. And six years later, you know, we are in our 3rd version of doing functionality, and our 3rd version of doing capability, and capacity, and the brick wall elements, you know, we're into our 2nd brick or 3rd brick wall, and we're just going through the whole process again.
So what's different? Is it that analysis, that knowledge?
Yeah, I think you start to get it, leverage it down the business, you know. And, you know, we've gone through the 5 key areas of product, distribution channels, capability, functionality, capability and session planning. Those are key elements in our business that we're constantly looking at. And so really, by using the frameworks are now embedded in our business. And one of the key things is that, you know, we did start making more money, and we became more innovative, and life became fun again, became exciting. And guess what? Then we started hitting the sort of frustration levels again. So it is a business stage cycle. You just go through it. Yeah.
So at this moment, how do you feel about your business at the moment?
At this moment, I'm more excited than I've ever been, because the reality is we've gone through stages in our business where we've really looked at capability, and we had to make some, you know, when you start a business, people change, and some people are great at the beginning. And with functionality in your business, to actually survive in the first few years, you have multifunctional people, multi-capable people. So if somebody does this job here, but they have to do something else, people come in underneath it and start doing things. And you have like a finance department will be looking things that operations really should do. Or have an IT department that are doing things that somebody operations should do. So you have the function of the business sort of migrates to the wrong place. And what has surprised me is that we thought we solved it 6 years ago, and then a few years later we find, oh, it's sort of happened again, but in a bigger scale. You still got IT not doing what they should be doing properly, or finance doing the shapes of these departments, and the people within their departments are, and it's part of the cultural side here, are actually going, wait a minute, I don't want to change. I like my department. Don't take that job away from me. An example is the finance department, where they actually enjoy doing the operational stuff more than they like doing the finance stuff. And at that point you go, right, you either go and work in operations or you do the finance stuff, but you can't do either. And then you start looking at their capability. And the business now, because we've gone through that, and we've gone through a massive capability change through our succession planning side, and we've moved some people to different jobs, and we've had to say goodbye to some people as well, some of the founders of the business who just weren't really in line with what we wanted to do, and weren't aligned in our growth potential. The answer to your question, I've taken ages to actually answer that question. It's amazing. And the fact I can still remember it has been pretty good, because I usually go on such tangents. But the answer to your question, how do I feel now? It's really exciting. It's going, I mean, it's just like great, because we've got an energetic workforce, and we've got people that believe in what we can achieve. And the only frustration we have is just not doing it fast enough.
Okay, I'm just going to rewind very quickly.
Yeah.
With the capability, frankly, you were talking about people that you'd set up the business with.
Yeah.
That was not an easy process. So how did Twydell support you? How did that methodology support you in that process?
Well, one of the things they hammer on about succession planning. So what that does is it gives you the alternative. So you start to have people there, people in your business, to say, actually, right, if I do move that person away, I can actually bring up that individual, or I have people that can actually do the job. The other thing is if you also, one of the things that Twydell said, the thing they do, think, feel, know, which was another one of their products, which we did, and you start to understand how people work. And if they are deep thinkers, but you're in a part that needs quick decision making, they'd struggle. And that's what's helped. That partly helped us as well. That helped the individuals understand that actually you're this type of person, and you're actually doing the job which is just not suited to you. And actually, doesn't that annoy you doing that bit? And I did have the classic example of a guy in IT who was running a big department, who it just wasn't him. I put him into the development side, really happy, massively adding value to the business, more than he's ever done for a long time. And you know, it realisation to him that was not his role. He didn't want to do it. So
just with 3 words, think, feel, know, you can be overt with your staff.
Yes,
and
it's helped them.
Yeah. Of what their strengths and weaknesses were, or where they. Okay, that's really interesting. So you said you're really excited and happy. So how does that translate in terms of your plans for the business? Because obviously you expanded very nicely at the beginning. You've hit numerous brick walls. So where do you see it going in the next year?
Well, the great thing about it is if you do follow, you know, if you go like the product, we analysed our product. 2008, we had a product, boom time product in a recession. Big implementation fees, quite a big risk to take us on board. And I've said before at other things, you know, it took us a couple of years to really get to understand that. And we tried repackaging and made it even more complicated to understand. So, you know, we went through these classic problems. But once we got the product right, you know, we understood that, you then start looking at distribution channels. And your distribution channels, for us, it suddenly went, actually, we've got a software product here. And then we've got another product which is we're to do with transport, and we've got something that's pretty much like a carrier. Yes, it's multiple carriers, but we use our technology to manage multiple carriers. But that's another product on its own. If we treat it, where people can just pay a rate. We were into management fees and consultative type fees and gain share mechanisms, which we still have. But these two other products sort of fell out of understanding the distribution channels. And that suddenly meant we have different revenue streams, and we could start to attack different markets. And these were really scalable products, whereas our main product we realised was not as scalable as we wanted it to. So having two scalable products, it opened your eyes up to, actually, this company could grow dramatically bigger. And then that's the point when we went, okay, right, how big do we want it to be? And that's where you get alignment of your management team. And that's one of also the things in terms of looking at the capability. And there were some members of the team that we had that actually didn't want to get bigger. They were quite happy. And actually be putting a huge amount of energy into not getting the growth. So that sort of thing was coming out from really just going through, from the developing of the products, but looking at the capability and the alignment of our staff.
So how big, are you putting a figure on yourself now?
Ourself?
Yes.
How big do I want to be? Yes. Well, I need to get a bit smaller, actually. That's something which... oh, you mean the company? Sorry.